What extinct creature would be an absolute nightmare for humans if it still existed? Neon Ghostface said, I feel like pterodactyls would be a nuisance. Tall and Tangled said, Sarcosuchus imperator was a crocodile who measured over 40 feet long and is estimated to have had one of the greatest bite forces in history. Something that could go in and out of the ocean like that and just gobble up a family walking by the beach, not even right next to the water, is terrifying. They were thought to have scavenged out of the water. Sheep Sleep Deep said, unless I had full head-to-toe plate armor and an automatic shotgun with a drum, I don't like my chances against a Haast's eagle out in the open. It was a 30-pound bird of prey that hunted moa in New Zealand. Imagine 30 pounds dive-bombing you out of the blue with 2-inch talons and a 4-inch claw on each foot. It went extinct only like 400 years ago because the first humans to inhabit the area hunted the moa go extinction almost immediately and starved out the eagles. The Nightbringer said, everyone is saying large birds, but honestly I doubt it. Humans can control air easily. Anything that persistently aggressive towards humans would be hunted down and murdered right back into extinction. Something from the water's more likely. Imagine a giant-ass megalodon taking a bite out of a container ship and humanity would struggle to even find it. Nikki Pans said, any other hominin species? Neanderthal, Denisovans etc. It would be such a moral pain in the ass. Can we put them in zoos? Do they get nature preserves? Do we give them human rights? How would we share land and resources? Would we go to war? I feel like the world is only big enough for one of us, and it might not be big enough for just us either. Shamanizer I said. Scroll down to find this. I think Neanderthals might be easy enough. They might actually be close enough to humans intellectually to just be treated as us. Go a bit further back and there might be problems. What do you do with people who are definitely people but also not quite created equal? Glitterlock said, I gotta say, when I'm in the presence of other apes, gorillas, chimps, bonobos, orangutans, etc., I personally get the distinct feeling that they are definitely people. I think we're living in the world you're describing now, and we've made our choices. We lock them in cages and destroy their land. That's what we do. Gregostex said, given how we treat Homo sapiens who are minutely different, I am not optimistic that we would agonize over the right thing to do for too long before some politician decided to characterize them as a threat that must be exterminated, or at least brutally brought to heel. Then the mining and agriculture industries would provide productive work for them. Zulapips said, it would divide the living shit out of us. You'd have Neanderthal rights activists and full-out Nazis wanting to exterminate them all. Worst thing is that both aren't necessarily completely wrong since, like you said, it would be a moral pain in the ass to figure out what to do with them, but also it would be an issue when it comes to society, laws, culture, and natural resources. Ugh, I don't even want to think about all the complexities of dealing with that. Victor Laszlo said, I think the early European settlers had a pretty good handle on most North American land creatures. Bears? Have those in Europe. Wolves? Ditto. Mountain lions? We used to catch bigger versions of those and make them fight in the Colosseum for our amusement. Moose? Scary, but at least they're not carnivorous. However, I would have loved witness, from a safe distance, the first time European settlers encountered the most terrifying land mammal on the entire North American continent, the humble Mephitis mephitis. What's this little badger-looking thing? It's got a pretty stripe. You know, actually I think I'd like to pet it. Maybe give it a name. I'll just walk a little closer and, why is it turning around? What's it doing? What's that? Oh Jesus Christ on the cross, what is that smell? Oh God, oh Jesus, oh fuck. Urban Redneck 2 said, well actually when Lewis and Clark came across in 1804 the Lakota warned them of a bear that lived only in the West. It could be so terrible the Indians would only take one on if there were at least 5 of them and they preferred 10. This bear was the grizzly bear. A grizzly can weigh 600 pounds and run 35 miles per hour. Even worse, grizzlies often travel and hunt in packs. Squigglepig52 said, could you imagine trekking across Bering Sea, stepping over cranky walruses, dodging polar bears, and when you reach a decent climate? Grizzlies chasing you down. I read that during the California Gold Rush, animal blood sports were big as entertainment, specifically, pitting a grizzly against other large dangerous animals. And, Because Gold Rush they could afford to import lions and such for the show. According to what I read, Bear vs. Lion wasn't a good show. Bear would basically pimp slap the lion to death. Boom, crushed skull. Minted Blue said, not the obvious extinct predators or dinosaurs answer, but my best bet would be other Homo species. We barely get along with each other as Homo sapiens sapiens. Now imagine what would happen if different species were still alive. Racism, wars, never-ending conflict and competition, most of them about resources like food and water. Imagine a united Homo Neanderthals in the billions against us Homo sapiens. Velocity010 said, somehow this makes me the equivalent of nationalistic towards my own species and ready for war with those fuckers. God, what is wrong with me? Like the xenophobic aggression is primarily inherent in me towards them somehow. I mean, my brain can think, WTF is wrong with you, but somehow my inner predator is all like, yeah, you fuck them up real good with the boys. Tsunami Inatbut said, probably because they would be seen as a threat to our way of life. Like you'd have to fight for land and food and things, so you might as well eliminate the weaker competition. I think having another hominid species on the earth like that would have either stunted our intellectual growth or we would be a much more violent species. And I mean more violent as in less likely to have morals and more likely to be more animalistic. Also, happy cake day fellow Homo sapien. Additional Cry 1904 said, I think I remember from somewhere people who study human migration patterns noticed that humans didn't cross the land bridge into North America until the cave bear started dying out. Meaning that these fuckers were so bad that they quite literally stopped humans from reaching an entire continent. But IDK, not sure if it's true or not, but when I heard it I was like, damn. Competitive Yak 7284 said, dodos. They had no fear of humans, so they would invade our cities like immense, slow-walking pain in the ass pigeons. Every time you tried to catch a bus you'd be surrounded by a flock of F-on dodos looking all cute at you and side-eyeing your sandwich. Why did the dodo cross the road? It didn't. It just stood in the middle of the road staring into space and pooping for half an hour, holding up all the goddamn traffic. And then they'd get in the subways, and breed and try to pick your luggage or some SHT. Absolute nightmare. Don't tell me you can't picture this. Monty 845 said, it wasn't until the Iron Age that we really saw military technologies that started to surpass pointy sticks and rocks. The phalanx ruled the battlefields of Europe up through the early Roman Republic, who started with phalanx of their own, before developing their famous manipular legions. Then, after the fall of Rome, heavy cavalry was dominating the battlefield, until pike formations, just better pointy sticks, were developed to counter them. Pointy sticks remained militarily relevant until the widespread adoption of the machine gun. Meanwhile, slingers are basically just throwing rocks at the enemy, and also saw common military use up through the 12th century. Deer Tie 284 said, those prehistoric, giant fuck you mosquitoes? It's bad enough getting a bite from the tiny ones. Those big fuckers look like they'd suck you dry like one of those Mennonite dolls. Also, smallpox. Or some mutated strain of it. Mostly because we don't vaccinate for it anymore, so we don't really have immunity. All the other critters here are like, stay out of the water, and you're safe. Or stay out of the forest jungle. Or shoot it. Or harpoon it. But mosquitoes? Those assholes are everywhere. The two Balos said. The passenger pigeon. Most people recall that this bird was hunted to extinction by humans around the turn of the 20th century, but many don't realize the reason behind it, justified or not. The passenger pigeon was once the most numerous bird in North America, and possibly the entire world. Estimates in the mid-19th century put the population at over 1/2 billion, and perhaps as many as 5 billion. They were also very social, preferring to nest and breed in massively large flocks. Migrating passenger pigeons would number in the literal millions, blackening the sky for hours. They were so easy to hunt that one could bring a shotgun outside, aim in any random direction, and bring down 10 birds with one shot. They became an easily accessible cheap food item for the post-Civil War poor in the late 19th century. In addition, they were seen as a pest because imagine 289,345,987 pigeons roosting in trees together during breeding season, often destroying them, and leaving literal mountains of bird shit in their wake. Given the economics, they were edible, and the societal, they were a nuisance. Influences. It's not really surprising to realize that they were completely eradicated in only 50 years. You think the pigeons in the city park, shitting all over the statues in your car, are annoying? Imagine uncountable millions and millions of them, thundering across the skies without end, raining white poop day and night, getting sucked into aircraft engines, destroying all the trees in the park, the squawking noise of a sea of feathers and beaks. Imagine cicada brood-eggs, but this time, it's birds who grow to be 1.5 feet long. You'd wish they were extinct, wouldn't you? Jareth the cactus said. Assuming the fact that the atmosphere has much less oxygen in it than it originally had when they existed can be ignored, those massive snake-sized centipedes that existed millions of years ago. Imagine if you got the biggest meanest centipede and made it big enough to eat a small child with ease? Yeah, that would be a very bad thing. Arg said. Boring answer, nothing. If it was a serious enough problem, we'd kill it until it was extinct. Example. How long do you think would an aerial predator last when any sighting would result in hunters being dispatched? You don't even need anything crazy high-tech. A bunch of humans with automatic shotguns and rifles are scary enough. Getting eaten by the dinos too often? They're now in trucks with reinforced protective cages. Probably mostly Toyotas. Some form of giant dino shitting everywhere and stepping on people? It's not as it can hide very well. Once it is sighted, it'll either meet small arms fire until it keels over, or someone will call animal control and they'll send an Apache with a 20mm chain gun. We're currently working on getting rid of human-biting mosquitoes, and the main reason they still exist is that they aren't a serious threat in wealthy regions and there is no agreement that we want them gone. Anything that kills people and is big enough to shoot will be short-lived unless it can breed faster than we can make bullets, and doesn't rely on breeding places that we can remove, poison, or burn. Bloated Baryonyx said. This is a tough question. When I think of animals that are a nightmare to deal with, I don't think of aggressive megafauna like lions, bears or huge sharks. I think of insects, pests or invasive species. Megafauna typically have large individual territories and reproduce slowly, just a few offspring every year or two at most. This makes them rare to encounter and easy to hunt to extinction, something I think most of us are familiar with about humans. Would Tyrannosaurus, Megalodon, Diodon or Titanos be scary? Yes. Would they be a nightmare? I think we'd be the bigger nightmare for them. So what about insects? The giant millipede arthropleura could grow to over 2 meters long and would have been a voracious predator that could reproduce much more quickly. During the Carboniferous, all manner of similarly giant insects reigned supreme. A nightmare if you're a time traveler for sure, but today? No. The Carboniferous had incredibly high oxygen saturation, much more than today. In the modern day they would all die of suffocation within a day. The biggest nightmare to deal with would be an aggressive creature with limited modern predators that could feasibly survive in the modern day. They would have to be difficult to eradicate, either due to sheer numbers and slipperiness or because they are problematic to find, hunt like a fast aquatic or volant species. Shorts are comfy said. Anything from the Carboniferous, really. Back then there was so much oxygen in the atmosphere that there were gigantic insects just lurking around. You had Meganeura, dragonfly with a 70-centimeter wingspan, Arthropleura, 2 m long and 0.5 m wide centipede, and Megarachne, a genus of huge aquatic arthropods. I certainly am glad we don't have any of those anymore. No Pomegranate 7743 said. My GG grandfather was a CSA soldier. By all accounts, he was not in favor of succession or slavery, but was drafted. Those who evaded the draft at that time faced severe social and legal consequences. His brother was killed at Sharpsburg, where he was taken prisoner. He was released in a POW exchange much later. I have no sympathy for the Southern cause, but I'm glad he survived or I wouldn't be sitting here rebuking you for fooling those guys.